Have you ever wondered why some of humanity's biggest leaps in progress seem to emerge out of times of crisis, not comfort? What if I told you that the luxuries and technologies we cherish today, your smartphone's GPS, the power grid lighting up your home, even the ability to travel the world are all rooted in some way in the chaos of war? And here's the uncomfortable question. Has war secretly been the engine of human progress? Or have we paid too high a price for inventions that could have happened in a different way? Let's unravel 10,000 years of human history and try to answer one of civilization's most dangerous paradoxes. Let's start from the beginning. Imagine a world without countries, without cities, just small groups fighting for survival. Why did early humans go to war? Simple. For land, for food, for safety. And archaeologists have found 12,000-year-old burial sites in Sudan where over 40% of bodies showed wounds from spears and arrows. In some ancient societies, one out of every seven deaths was due to violence. When hunting grounds or water sources grew scarce, only way to survive was to fight for it. So it wasn't hatred or ambition or greed that fueled war, it was necessity. Violence created tighter tribes, sharper weapons, and the earliest forms of social rules. So, why did our ancestors feel the need to progress from stones to bronze? Think about it. If your rivals show up at your settlement with bronze tipped spears, your old stone tools don't stand a chance. Ancient societies like Egypt and Mesopotamia developed advanced metalwork for military survival. But those same techniques, melting, shaping, trading rare metals, soon transformed farming, architecture, and trade networks. Empires were born from this military race. The Hittites built their bureaucracy just to supply and tax an army that could protect or conquer. The Assyrians organized their entire society around war logistics. Their innovation in administration, supply lines, and record keeping would soon influence how countries were managed even after the fighting stopped. And why did people start forming massive empires? It was just for security. When you are a small tribe, survival means constant fear. But join a larger empire like Rome, and suddenly you have a professional army and walls between you and chaos. The Roman Empire built over 250,000 miles of roads primarily for moving armies quickly. But ask yourself, would Rome need to build this network if not for the threat of rival invaders? These roads, military fortifications, and supply chains set the stage for unprecedented peace and prosperity known as Pax Romana. So, war wasn't the goal, security was. But war forced the innovations that made a secure, advanced society possible. In the medieval era, war changed again. Why did gunpowder spread like wildfire across Eurasia? Because one kingdom's breakthrough was another kingdom's existential crisis. Castles that once seemed unbreakable became vulnerable overnight to cannons. This forced rulers to tax more efficiently, build modern states, and actually invent new forms of math and engineering. That's right, the military race for new weapons and fortifications pushed societies to invent double entry bookkeeping, complex logistics, and better metallurgy. It's a pattern. When survival is at stake, new doors of creativity open, sometimes at a terrible cost. Now let's talk about the 20th century. Why two world wars became such accelerators of innovation? World War I wasn't just a tragic mistake, it was a wake up call that whoever could mobilize, manufacture, and deploy faster would survive. Chemical weapons, tanks, fighter planes, and even blood banks all emerged because each side was desperately searching for an edge. For example, stainless steel was mass produced for better gun barrels. War surgeons facing impossible wounds in the trenches pioneered new methods for trauma care and surgery. But it was World War II that totally rewrote the book. Why did radar, jet engines, and nuclear energy appear so suddenly? Because the stakes were higher than ever before. The threat of enemy bombers forced the British to create radar. So, for the first time, seeing an approaching aircraft at a distance could mean the difference between defeat and survival. The Germans developed the world's first working jet aircraft, hoping to outperform Allied fighters in speed and agility. Then, when the race to win the war escalated, the United States mobilized a staggering $21 billion for the Manhattan Project. And the goal was to build the atomic bomb before the Nazi Germany could. The program didn't just end the war, it paved the way for the computer, nuclear energy, and even modern hospitals using radioisotopes. But let's pause. The cost 85 million dead, entire cities erased, economies shattered for decades. Beyond technology, why did wars drive social change? Because survival required entire populations to mobilize. In the US during World War II, women entered factories in record numbers, not because of sudden enlightenment, but because the war effort needed more hands. After victory, these women demanded more rights, changing forever the fabric of work and family. Decolonization across Asia and Africa after World War II happened largely because colonial powers emerged weakened and independence movements, many forced by wartime hardship, became unstoppable. Wars also pushed nations towards welfare states and international agreements. The horrors of conflict drove the creation of the United Nations and the recognition of basic human rights globally. And here's where the story takes a twist. The Cold War was a war of nerves, not armies. Why did so many civilian benefits emerge? Because superpowers competed in science, not open battlefield. The race to the moon created miniaturized computers, new materials, and the very satellites that let you stream this video. The American military worried about nuclear war cutting communications, so they funded a project that became the internet. But instead of just being a weapon, the internet transformed into a tool for connection, commerce, and creativity worldwide. As civilian research and entrepreneurship took over in the late 20th century, the necessity to innovate through violence shrank. Entrepreneurs, not generals, were the new drivers of breakthroughs. So today, only 18% of R&D funding globally is driven by military, and civilian invention far outpaces war-related projects. Why? Because peaceful cooperation, open science, and global teamwork are simply faster, cheaper, and more effective. The Green Revolution was peaceful. Scientists fearing global famine without war developed crops that fed a billion people, saving countless lives. And let's talk about the International Space Station. It was built by 15 countries together without a single shot being fired. As you know, during the COVID 19 pandemic, vaccines went from lab to the arm in under a year, powered not by military urgency but by global scientific collaboration and necessity for survival. But here's the other reality: war is an incredibly expensive, wasteful way to get things done. The US spent $8 trillion on conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. Imagine if that money was used for health, education, or curing diseases. So think about it. Is war the engine of progress? Historically, yes, up to a point. The fear, pressure, and chaos of war did shape states, spark inventions, and sometimes create peace through dominance. But the price has always been huge: millions dead, cultures destroyed, generations left behind. The real lesson: we have outgrown war as an engine of innovation. The biggest challenges we face today, pollution, pandemic, poverty, won't be solved with weapons, but with the same urgency, focus, and teamwork that only war once inspired. So the next time someone claims that war is necessary for progress, ask yourself, don't we know better now? Can't we choose a cheaper, kinder, and smarter path to the future? That's all for now. For more such explanatory videos, don't forget to like and subscribe.